Welcome to the official podcast of FOR ETERNIA.com. We have the power. I'm your host, AJ, aka Voodoo Magic, aka Zor. And after roughly a 2-month hiatus, we are back. Back with a brand new season of podcasts and kicking it all off with a very special guest. Yes, today's episode is titled Quest for He-Man, a title borrowed from the classic Filmation episode of the same name that aired almost 40 years ago, which also encapsulates our guest's journey, I think, or dare I say his destiny, which has transpired mainly over the past 5 years. His quest to bring He-Man back, our classic He-Man that we knew and loved as children, back onto our television screens and back into our hearts. So I would like to give a very special welcome to one of the three towers of Preternia, Masters of the Universe, Revelation, and Revolution executive producer and all-around swell guy, Ted Biaselli. Ted, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, AJ. Oh, I love that. That was a hell of an introduction. Although, from that very same episode, Quest for He-Man, some may call me Plundar. So some may say that
I should
that I have contaminated the entire landscape and the Schmidtovits are running crazy.
Well, we certainly don't feel this way on this channel. So,
and I appreciate that. I will say that you guys, early on when Revelation had dropped, there was such a bright spot that was shining through with you guys. You really seem to understand exactly what we were trying to do. Like a lot of it goes into the conception of something, right? And then when you put stuff out into the space, into the ether, it starts to take on a life of its own. And it's hard to sort of get your hands around it. It's like, no, you're going down. No, this is what we're trying to do. No, stop looking over that way. Look at what we've done. This is what we're trying to do. And it starts to get take on a life of its own. But you guys were very, very good about picking up what we were putting down the whole time. And I was like, wow, these guys get it. So thank you.
And you being a swell guy was part of it. And let me explain that. So I called you a swell guy in the opening of this podcast because truly, and this is not hyperbole, if Ted was not so nice, it is quite possible that FOR ETERNIA would not even exist. And let me explain. I think it was back in 2021. I was on the fence regarding creating FOR ETERNIA.com. The fan environment felt very hostile, as you know, political even. And it really didn't feel like there was truly a destination where one was not confronted by it daily. And I was just considering constructing a place that was positive and welcoming, not just to MOTU fans, but fans who really loved Masters of the Universe Revelation. But I knew it would take a big commitment. And during these moments of indecision, I had a question about Masters of the Universe Revelation that I decided I was going to ask you about. I was going to ask Ted about. And I don't 100% remember specifically what that question was, but I think it involved a clarification of the meaning behind the Death of God scene, the ram, the serpent, the falcon around the lake that Darklyn envisioned. And maybe we could get into that in a little bit later. But I
love talking about that stuff, by the way.
Me too. But I mostly thought this was honestly a fool's errand. Because, see, I reached out to Teddy and I never expected a response, never honestly expected to hear back. He's a big time producer at Netflix. He'll never respond to me. I figured, who am I, right? But not only did Teddy reach back out to me and answer my questions, take the time to answer my questions. But he was courteous, he was passionate, and he was kind. And that kindness, I think, was the final nudge I needed to convince myself to, yeah, let me create this site. And since then, quite frankly, it's become more than me, more than Revelation. It's brought a super nice community together that I feel personally so lucky to interact with. It was just uniting with so many great positive fans that truly have enriched my life. So Ted is proof that, like a pebble, right? Like a pebble dropped in the center of a pond that has that ripple effect that can pass all the way to the edge of the pond. All it takes is a bit of kindness in the way we treat people, where you can truly make an impact, sometimes more than you even, realize. So
that was lovely. And by the way, if you came to me with kindness, which you did, it's given back. So it really is chicken and the egg, man. It's like you approached it with respect and kindness, and I was like, oh, well, why wouldn't I take out the time? But it wasn't, I got some not so kind things in my DMs as well. But and there's a balance, because look, I am a firm believer that all criticism is valid criticism, right? When you're bringing it from a place of passion and love and devotion to something. I have been an active critic of Star Wars in recent years, right?
Yeah.
In all of Phase 4 in Marvel, I've been a very, very staunch critic of how things have gone awry. I get it. Nobody is perfect in their intentions, and I think that the intentions to deliver something. Let me rephrase that. Nobody is intentionally malicious with their execution of things. I think everyone goes in, especially in this business, into the creation of something that is valuable IP, right? Something that is beloved to millions. I truly believe in the best of us, that we go into it with the intentions to deliver something that is on par, that treats the project with respect. There has been plenty of examples throughout the history of entertainment where valuable IP has been, kind of crapped on, and just taken in name only, and kind of like slapped a something on a toy box to sell it. And I think that there are wounds that people have from all of that stuff, right? There's absolutely plenty of examples of that make people resent when something new comes out, mistrust it, all of that stuff. And I get it. I totally get it. And I think we are at an era where the culture wars have sort of gelled around certain things. And I'll be perfectly honest. I think that the Star Wars sequels and some of the other things in pop culture around MOTU have sort of galvanized people one way or another, right? And I feel like we've lost the balance to see and embrace things that we love and things that we don't love, and sort of are able to sort of sit in a more neutral space. You have to either hate it or love it, and I don't know if that's necessarily healthy for any franchise to be so diametrically positioned around something. So if people if people want 10 episodes where Adam transforms into He-Man once an episode, solves a problem, and then goes back into Adam, and everything ends the way it starts, that's not what we tried to do, right? That's not what we tried to do. We set out from the very first press release. We said, this is going to pick up the threads of what we wanted to do, of what they laid down back in the 80s. And we always said that it was taking cues from Filmation, from the mini comics, from the Golden Books, from the UK comics. Like, we really, really dug in on all of that. And we wanted to pick up those threads. some folks they missed that memo. They didn't see that, or they saw that and they thought, oh, wait a minute, this is going to literally be episode 131 or of Filmation, and that's what it's going to be, and people make their own minds up for it, and then when it's not delivered on those expectations, it polarizes. And I get it. I totally get it.
Teddy, I think though, I think a big part of the problem is they just didn't remember the Filmation show. And I'll just pull out.
I agree with that too.
I will pull out just one line out of so many, right? And so many things we've seen. I think it was Visitors from Earth, where there was a female astronaut from Earth. But she does a move on a villain, if I remember. And He-Man asked her, where did you learn that? And she said, my father taught me how to cook, and my mother taught me jujitsu or judo or something like that. Yeah. And I swear, if you put that in Revelation, people would have flipped out, and having no idea that this is what the series was when you were sequelizing it. You're being faithful, it's
He-Man would turn and look at camera and go, girls can do anything boys can do, and sometimes they can do it better. And it's like, if I did that, oh my God, I am the most, woke, progressive, insane social justice warrior in the world. But look, all that notwithstanding, I'm going to take all the culture war stuff and put it on a shelf, because I think a lot of that was nonsense. I think that there was a lot of people looking to make something out of this. He-Man did not step down or step aside and give Teela the power sword and say, no, you go be a better He-Man than me. And Teela's not a lesbian, and Andra's not her lover, and any of that, all that craziness that's not there. It's not in the show. Yeah. But I will say, if you came to this to want to see a show where He-Man came and saved the day in every episode, yes, I get it. This was not that. This was not that show. We all talked about wanting to pick up those pieces. I always said, I want to see the moment when Teela realizes that Adam is He-Man. That is me. Rob said that. We sat down at breakfast and we were like, that's what I want to see, that moment. And anybody who remembers Filmation would know that was never going to end well. Teela was never the kind of level-headed, even-keeled, calm person who would take that well. And also, that girl was not the person that should be the sorceress. She needed to go on a self-discovery journey to understand the bigger picture. That girl that starts out in Revelation is not the girl that ends up in Revelation, and that was part of the journey. Obviously, that takes a lot of time to tell that story and to do it, effectively. If Adam did not die, if Adam did not sacrifice himself in a moment of true messianic sacrifice, if he did not do that, if he did lose the power and Teela just went on to save the day for Adam, I think it would have been even worse. I think people would have looked at that as something even more of a statement of trying to emasculate someone. Instead, what he did was the ultimate sacrifice, and we got to see what his impact was on the world without him. It was the day without a Superman story. It was literally having all of those people talk about the impact. When Orko says, I miss him every day, it breaks my heart. I still see that. I still feel that, Man-at-Arms lost a lot of who he was without Adam in the world, but he never lost the spirit of what Adam brought and the that kind of fire in him. And I think that was all very valuable. I do believe time will be very kind to Revelation, the same way time has been very kind to Transformers the movie. Because if everybody remembers, people hated Transformers the movie. I remember vividly, I think I was 10 years old or 11 years old, and it was the first movie that I was allowed to go see by myself. right? It was me and two friends, and we went to go see Transformers the movie. I didn't realize that my dad had like been following us the whole time, and he actually sat in the movie theater just to make sure that we knew where we were going. We did it ourselves, and then he followed me back home.
That's a great dad.
It was so great. It was so great, and I found that out years later. But I remember sitting in Transformers the movie, and I remember it visibly upsetting me that, you know, Prowl was one of my very first Transformers. My dad was a cop, and he bought me Prowl. Prowl's dead in freaking 10 minutes into the movie. He's dead, and Ironhide's dead, and Huffer's dead, and they're all dead. And it was honestly, it was really, really, you know, traumatic. I get it. But what it did was it made the world real. It increased the stakes. Things changed. It wasn't just the story that wrapped up neatly at the end of the episode. And I look at Transformers the movie as one of my all-time favorite things, even though as a child I was traumatized by it, and I really broke my heart. But in time, I look at it as something that was truly an achievement in narrative storytelling for something based on a toy line. And that's really what we tried to do with Revelation. We wanted to give it stakes. We wanted to give it depth and weight, and really, really ground it in the characters that you know, but treat them with more sophisticated, you know, emotions, and allow them to go past the things that the network censors wouldn't let you do in 1986, right? That's what we tried to do.
Yeah. And I think you accomplished it well, but okay.
TBD.
All right. So Ted, we have Grayskull Tower, we got Viper Tower, and Central Tower. And I mentioned in the beginning that,
and that's what we've got. Those three towers.
All right, but hang on. So Kevin Smith refers to you three, you, Rob David, and himself, as the three towers. So which tower are you? Or more importantly, who's the Serpent Tower?
All right, I'm going to take that one. I'm going to take the Serpent Tower, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you. So in our story, and you'll get a little bit more of this in Revolution. If you go back to that scene in Revelation when Evelyn sees the death of God, right? Mm-hmm. In our mind, that's where all the sort of the religions of Eternia sort of gestated, right? There are these three gods. You have Zor, Ka, and Havoc. And it's sort of like a
to back you up, Ka is the name of Tila's staff. Right? And the serpent staff.
That will come into play in Revolution as well. Okay. So that is we looked at those as the three gods of Eternia, and it's sort of like a rock, paper, scissors scenario. That the followers of Zor looked at Zor as, you know, the one who won over Ka and Havoc. The followers of Ka looked at Ka as the one that won over Zor and Havoc. And the followers of Havoc looked at the one. So we kind of do like a little bit of that, you know, like, what is it? Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock on Big Bang Theory. So we kind of look at that. And in that setting, none of them are truly evil. The way you think of good and evil, life is more complicated than that, right? So in our minds, Zor is the god of birth, of Genesis, of bringing something to life. Ka is the god of the living experience, of taste, of smell, of scent, of passions, of carnal desires, all of that. That's Ka's the god of living. And then Havoc is the god of destruction, because you cannot have one without the other. And that is sort of how we look at the three of them existing together. So if we look at the Snake Men and we have not touched on the Snake Men in Revelation or Revolution at all. So, but we acknowledge in our internal discussions in our lore they existed, and it's sort of driven by those passions of life. I'll take on that I am the Viper Tower, not as someone who is evil, but someone who, depending on who you ask, but somebody who believes in the living moment, in something about, you know, touching. So I buy things because I like to touch them. I like owning them. I like having them around me. I love food. Those are the kinds of things that I love. And if you look at the three of us, Rob is the you know, he controls, for lack of a better word, Motu as a brand. Mattel created it. That would be Zor under the Grayskull banner. I am living in the moment. I have the opportunity now to bring something, you know, to you could touch. And the two of us together channeled Kevin, who is the Central Tower. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that
totally
makes sense.
Just pulled that out of my ass. Right? But it makes sense in my brain.
So with these sects, they have different priests, right? I would imagine 3 different. Okay, so
and in our sort of, and we've written out, like, I know everybody keeps asking to see this, and my hair is a mess today, and that's honestly what took me so long to get a hold of you this morning. So we have like a document that we shared upon us, like sort of like the origins of how all the different sects have come to existence, and you know, Hordak was the first priest of the sect of Zor. Okay. And we have them for Havoc and Ka as well. So,
you know, see, this is the stuff, and I'll just show you a concern, and you can like see if my concerns aren't founded. This is the stuff I adored about Masters of the Universe Revelation. You know, there were these deep threads of philosophy and religious themes, you know, all throughout the narrative that, to me, along with the adult dialogue and those great monologues with all the emotional underpinnings, elevated this spiritual 131st episode of the classic Filmation show to something more mature, special, and Tolkien-like. But moving forward, I did become a little concerned that we might lose some of that sophistication in Revolution. You know, once I heard that your team had listened to some of the complaints against Revelation and have course corrected. And I know Revelation didn't please everyone, but you know, I worry about a compromise in creative vision. The old adage, you know, you try to make everyone happy, you end up making no one happy, you know? So
I would say we course corrected, because I don't think that we were truly off course. I think that we definitely heard what people wanted to see. We always knew He-Man was coming back in episode 10 of Revelation. We knew Orca was coming back in episode 10, or not yet 10 of Revelation. We knew that was all happening. So we weren't really upset that was, you know, like people were like, oh my God, they killed He-Man. We didn't kill He-Man. We knew that. And I think that's, you know, that was part, and we knew where we were going in the potential second season of Revolution, that we, you know, what we wanted to do with He-Man. We knew where that story was going, and we did it. But what I do think we did was we listened to what people wanted to see, and we tried to find a way that we could tell the story we wanted to tell, but make sure that people were satisfied, that they saw He-Man being a hero, right? That was a big thing. People missed He-Man, and I hear it, I get it. We give you that. We give you He-Man, being a hero, but we also give him a little bit of a crisis of conscience in Revolution. And I think that's something I'm excited to show, that because, you know, my favorite episode, and arguably everybody's favorite episode, is The Problem with Power. When, you know, when He-Man thinks that someone died under his watch, and he was duped, right? And I think that but what we saw was a true reckoning within him. And we give Adam something to reckon with this season. And he's definitely got something that he is struggling with. And it is clearly something that has been building. It's not something that comes out of left field. It's something that has been building. And I think that people some people may love it, some people may not, of course, that's always the way, but I do think that it is all rooted in Motu. It's all classic Motu, and it gives him a little bit more of a mature, sophisticated, you know, drama to grapple with this season, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. I think I've talked about this before. I think I talked about this on another podcast, where he is He-Man through half of episode 1 in Revolution. He is He-Man through most of episode 2, all of episode 3. He's Adam in 4, and He-Man in 90% of episode 5. So he's He-Man in most of this. But that doesn't negate Adam and Adam's sort of thing. We also heard that, it was too much Teela. Well, we've told Teela's arc. She definitely has a place in Revolution. She has an arc that she has sort of a side quest. She is off on her thing that she is doing for the A plot, but it is definitely her own thing. But the balance is, it's definitely more He-Man and Skeletor. Skeletor is grappling with his own thing, right? Yeah. There's a very clear parallel that we are painting. If you looked at the poster of Revolution, that teaser poster, there is definitely something that is being grappled with in this. And, we bring in Hordak into this. So Skeletor's got some shit he's got to work out. Yeah. And He-Man's got some shit he's got to work out. And it's definitely a story for the two of them.
So let's get into a little of that. Actually, real quick, you mentioned the problem with power. Filmation He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is turning 40 this September. The Filmation.
How dare you? It's not turning 40. I can't be that old. That's impossible.
I think you and I are around the same age, so I'll just say that makes us over 25.
Correct.
But what are your, real quick, before we just jump into Revolution, what are your favorite episodes?
If you look at Revelation, you can see them. It's
Teela's Quest.
It's Teela's Triumph. It's the problem with power. It's oh goodness, it's the Witch and the Warrior. Also one of my favorite episodes. I love that one. So you can see all of that stuff. Like if you look at the Witch and the Warrior,
that's when we first see Evelyn's haircut.
White hair. That's right.
Yeah.
And that whole dynamic of the two of them together, like I love that. Like how could you not love that? And the great dialogue written by Paul Dini in that. I mean, come on, it's so good. So that's all splattered all over those. But actually, I'm gonna be really honest. I love the Christmas episode.
You do?
I do. I love it. I watch it every year.
That's great.
It's so hokey, but I love it.
I'm dark, man. My favorite episode is Evil Seed. And
I love Evil Seed too.
I remember to this day, as a child, I was glued to that screen, and it had jump scares and a menacing villain. And it really felt like the beings on Eternia were overmatched and truly in jeopardy. And wow, what an ending, because I believe I'm correct in saying that Evil Seed was the only villain in the Filmation series that actually died. He was actually killed at the end of the episode. Yeah, he has a withered corpse, and I remember. And it's foreboding. There's no soundtrack. There's just the wind whistling, and everyone's staring at his dead body. And I was like, wow.
It is a great episode.
It is. So that one definitely has my heart. But real quick on the Witch and the Warrior, there was a magical fountain in that episode, I believe, called the Fountain of Life.
That's correct.
And was that perhaps the same fountain, the same magic waters?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I'll say it for the audience's sake, that Duncan was retrieving in Masters of the Universe Revelation to keep Orko alive. So it is. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yep. See, that's a deep dive there that I just love. It's not everyone's going to see that, but it's there for the people who.
There's stuff like that in Revolution too. I think people they've already caught that in Scareglow's in the scene that we showed at Comic-Con. Behind him, there's all these like little shelves. Well, I love the idea of Scareglow's reliquary, right? That was an idea that came out of Classics when he had that little the little reliquary with the key to Grayskull. I love that. That was a really cool little detail that I just thought was great. And when we were building on Scareglow, when we were building on that idea that he was a collector, and it wasn't just souls that he collected, but he collected these arcane artifacts that had so much, you know, lore and arcana in the world. And when we got the opportunity to show the interior of his reliquary in Revolution, we went to town. Like, I have email upon email to Rob and to Patrick and to Adam with just tons of references from golden books, from the you know, UK comics, from the movie, from Filmation, from the mini comics, just so many. And people are going to be pausing the hell out of those scenes.
All right, so let's go there. The San Diego Comi Con 2023, Masters of the Universe Revelation was the highlight of that Comic Con, I must say. And the highlight of your presentation was this clips, 2 of them. And spoiler alert, everyone, if you don't want to hear, these 2 clips were just awesome. And one was in Subternia, where we saw He-Man on a rescue mission, seemingly to save the souls of Fisto and Clampchamp, seemingly, and Orko and Andra and King Randor and Buzz Off and Snout Spout and Real Blast was there. And then in the second clip, we have this foreboding scene where Skeletor is already transformed by the technovirus from Motherboard, and he's infecting evil warriors like Too Bad in the servitude of Motherboard and Hordak. So and if you can't answer these, I understand. Were both of these clips taken from episode 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they're both taken from episode 1. Mainly because that was episode 1 is done. It's mixed, it's scored, it's final animation.
Oh yeah, and you got Bear back. Thank goodness. I was worried that you wouldn't get Bear back.
Oh yeah. Bear is the 4th tower of Eternia.
Yeah.
So he's amazing.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah, so those are both taken from episode 1. There is a scene there. So the scene with He-Man and Scareglow continues. There's more of that. Okay. And then right after that scene, there's another scene that happens on the Cloud Crusher, and then we go into the scene in Snake Mountain. So it's relatively early in the episodes. Those are 2 sequences that are pretty early in the episode.
Okay. Now, can you elaborate more on this apparent quest to on the altar of all right.
I mean, people inferred what Adam's doing down there.
Yeah, I did a whole video on it. And I never know how you're going to react or Netflix is going to react. It's
funny because it was right after, maybe not right after, but after part 2 aired, a couple months, I was on Geek Dad Life, Jay Gladfelder's Geek Dad.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
And everybody kept talking about Clampchamp and Fisto dying, and I was like, well, look, put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that. I remember that.
And that was like what, 2 years ago. So it's like, you know, again, the ideas, we knew what the ideas are. Again, I don't want to minimize what happened with Clampchamp and Fisto, right? Because I get it. Those are people's favorite characters. My favorite character is Mossman, and he was the first one that was dead. So we, you know, and that came very, very early on when we talked. When Rob said, or I think it was Kevin said, we want to kill a character in the opening of Revelation.
And that was the death of innocence for me, man.
That's exactly what it was. That was exactly what it was. We had to make the tide change. Mm-hmm. And we talked about which character that was. Who would be the character that comes in that will be sort of that sacrifice to turn the tides, to change the tone of the show. Because that's the moment. That's the moment when we went from what felt like a classic episode of the show, mm-hmm, to something that was much more
adult,
serious.
Yeah.
And when we talked about it, we talked about a couple ideas, and one of the ideas that they had was Mossman. And I said, you guys are going to kill my favorite character. And it was a moment, but it honestly, it made sense.
Yeah.
It hurt. and it gave Skeletor that great line, "Smells like pine," which I think was, I mean, that again, that's classic Kevin Smith, right?
Yeah.
That is stakes, intense action, and wit. And it all worked for me. I get it. People were like, "Oh no, they killed Mossman." Yes, we killed Mossman, and it worked. It worked for the story. So,
and that wit didn't take me out of the scene, and no, it was marvelous. All right. So in the Hordak scene where he was communicating with Motherboard, the other clip, he looked like he was somewhere else. Was he possibly in Etheria?
he is on his it's funny because in the early scripts they kept calling it the Velvet Glove, and I kept saying, no, the Velvet Glove is Horde Prime ship. This is not the Velvet Glove. He is on his own ship, so he is on what, like the flagship of his armada. But in
the Velvet Glove always cracks me up.
Again, keep in mind, conceptually, this takes place after 130 episodes of the classic show, and the notion of going back and forth to Etheria Eternia is kind of like, it's a thing, right? No, it's not hard to do. Right. So he's not trapped anywhere. He's not imprisoned. He can go wherever the hell he wants to go. He's always had a problem taking over Eternia because of Grayskull and the power of Grayskull. That may or may not be a problem right now. So that's sort of where we're positioning this new story.
It was great to see Hordak, and
how great David.
I don't know. So many of us were relieved that Masters of the Universe Revolution has broken that Hordak curse. Are you familiar with that curse?
No, what's the curse?
And for anyone at home that doesn't know, there is a belief that many fans, if a Masters of the Universe television series teases the character of Hordak now, the show will be canceled before you could say evil Horde, and it happened with the Mike Young 2000X series, and it happened with Rob David's new children's CG show. Wasn't renewed at Netflix. So it was labeled.
That was Hordak's fault, though.
I know, but I mean, it was the same thing with American football. If like you appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated before the Super Bowl, you'd lose the Super Bowl. There was this long-running curse, and
wow,
so this was labeled the Hordak curse. But thankfully, Masters of the Universe Revolution broke it. So we're all.
By the way, that was something that Eric Carrasco was really, really committed to. When we had the idea to do the Motherboard reveal as the sort of like the epilogue, quote unquote post-credit scene, Eric was like, because initially we were like, is Motherboard her own entity? Is she a new faction of evil? And Eric's concept was nope. She is an emissary, and she's an emissary for Hordak. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So she's been there the whole time? Has she been like, and he's like, well, she's been there a while, but it was only after Skeletor was gone did she put her plan into motion for Hordak. And I think that was a very, very cool and wise concept from Eric.
Oh, and how exciting, Ted, you got a toy. I was talking with Tim Seeley on this podcast, and he was all excited that he's Skeletor. One of his creations from He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse was realized in plastic, and now like Motherboard, right? I mean,
so incredible. I have her right here.
Yeah.
Honestly, the Mattel gang, they brought me there a couple of weeks before Comic-Con, and I got to play with her, and like I knew she was coming. I knew she was going to be the Comic-Con exclusive, but I hadn't seen her, and they said, "Do you want to come over to Mattel to come and see some of the new figures for 24? Do you want to come and see Motherboard?" And I was like, "Yeah!" And it just so happened that I went on my birthday. It was my birthday, and I got to play with Eternia because they had a what do they call it? Output, a mold output of Eternia there.
Right.
And one of the things, I'm going to say this because Mattel's not doing a good enough job saying this. You can totally play with Eternia with Masterverse figures.
Yeah.
It is absolutely big enough. The only thing that it won't do is the trap door in Grayskull Tower. They added a trap door to Grayskull Tower. It's just a little too shallow for a Masterverse figure to drop all the way through. But in Central Tower, there's about this much clearance between the top of a Masterverse figure's head and the ceiling. Like, it's got clearance. You can totally fit a Masterverse figure in the jaws of Central Tower. I was like, whoa, this thing is way bigger. Why aren't you telling people how big this is? And I think because it was, you know, it's definitely designed as an Origins playset, but Masterverse figures totally fit with it. I was really, really excited by that.
Yeah, I actually did an article on that on FOR ETERNIA.com because they came out with this sort of blueprint diagram or something, and it had sort of measurements and scale, and they had a Masterverse He-Man there, and you could see the scale of the top of his head with the door entries, and I'm like, this is great. This is not just Eternia, this is Preternia, you know? And
I was having so much fun with it there. And I got to see all the figures for 24, all the ones that they showed at Comic-Con, and another. But I was very excited by all that stuff. That I saw all the new packaging by Roy, and I was like losing my mind. I was like, this is gorgeous, this packaging. I had seen movie Evil Lynn. And do you know how hard it had been to not tell people that movie Evil Lynn was coming? Like, I was literally holding her in my hand. I was shaking because, like, she's been one of my #1 figures that I've wanted my whole life, is that movie Evil Lynn. And to not be able to tell people that figure was coming was killing me.
Yeah, you know, I have all the others, you know, the classics, Blade and stuff like that, and the what was the designer, the collection?
Bill Stout.
Bill Stout. Yeah, William Stout collection, got all those. But yeah, Evil Lynn was like always missing from the bunch, and I couldn't wait to get her. And the fact that she was announced was fantastic. And it looks like, I mean, I don't know for sure, and I'm not at Mattel, but it looked like they got approval, you know, unlike the Dolph Lundgren He-Man figure.
It's pretty close, man.
Yeah.
Close.
It looked like they got Meg Foster's approval, you know, for her likeness. And
she's been amazing. I can't wait till you guys hear her. She's got a couple really, really good scenes. She's got this one sort of grand monologue that I'm like, oh my God. And her voice is perfect. She was, honestly, it was the first person we said when we were talking about who should play Motherboard. I said Meg Foster, and Rob was like, oh.
Yeah, her voice is like butter in a way. It's just smooth. It's just,
and she's still
menacing, and yeah,
she's still got it.
Yeah, and think about it. With Keith David, we have a They Live reunion of sorts, you know? I'm not sure. I got to watch that movie again. I'm not sure if they were actually in the same scene. Oh yeah, I guess so. When
they were, yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah. But, when she what's it called? Betrays them, right? But yeah, we have that reunion, and we have a reunion in a way with Gwildor, you know, and Meg Foster in a way, you know.
Although they don't have any scenes to no, they don't have any scenes together in Revolution.
Well, I guess they're in this. Oh, in Revolution. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
But and we have an interesting, you know, Mark Hamill and William Shatner having incredible, juicy, hammy, eating up this digital painted scenery. The two of them.
I can't wait to see that, you know, and I can't wait to relish in that. And can I ask, were they in the same booth or no?
No,
I would have loved just to see a video of that, like when you had Lena and Mark, right?
That was Lena and Mark was literally the last day of recording before COVID. And then the COVID restrictions. I mean, don't forget, Bill is 91, 92.
Yeah.
By the way, he still drives himself. I went to the recording booth when he was recording, and the man literally just drove himself there. And I was like, Like, he doesn't have a driver. He doesn't have like somebody driving around. Nope. Shatner comes out. He's like, hello, hello. And I was like, hi, Bill, I'm Teddy. I'm one of the executives on the show. He goes, oh, that means you don't do anything on this. And like, he is exactly what you think he is. And he is
you know, that's what I inspire to be at that age. Him or you know, God rest her soul, Betty White, right?
Yeah.
That they were just, or I guess, or even Clint Eastwood, man. He's directing films still in like his 90s. And
I got to work with Betty I was an executive on Higglytown Heroes, and she played our grandmama on Higglytown Heroes, and she was a spitfire. Oh, actually, I worked with her again, not only on Higglytown Heroes, on Pound Puppies. And we had scenes together because I had done a voice on Pound Puppies, and I was in a scene with Betty White. It was amazing.
Do you actually, maybe I'll put a pin in that voice acting for a second. So back what you were saying before with COVID, you know, from like a bird's eye view or a Zor's eye view, it feels like every time, you know, you do one of these Masters of the Universe animated shows, you know, an obstacle is thrown at you. With Revelation, you had COVID, where you had those actors scrambling around to create like homemade recording booths, right, in their homes and stuff like that, so they could finish all their voice work for the series. And now, and I know you can only limited talk about this, but and now with Revolution, you have both the writer's strike and the actor strike. So I mean, in a way, I'd be like shaking my fist at the almighty Zor, you know, with this. It's like, why do you keep forsaking me? Because I gotta imagine, and you touch upon this however you can. If the strike continues, even though all of the actors have recorded their dialogue, isn't that going to bind your wrists when it comes to the ability to execute on last minute changes, improvements, you know, reshoots, so to speak? An example would be the Revelation episode, Land of the Dead. And I believe this might have been your idea, Ted, where there was this like late decision to have actor Griffin Newman record like a Trollan nursery rhyme for Orko to recite to set up the character of Scaraglow better, and of course it required no new animation because, you know, we can't see Orko's mouth move.
No lip sync.
Yeah. And this was a change late in the game to improve quality of your product, but within the environment of these strikes, it's something I assume you can't do with Revolution. So long way of saying, are you concerned about that?
No, well, look, I'm concerned in the sense that I want to make sure that our actors and our writers get, you know, a deal that everybody feels good about. That right. I'm just going to say that. In terms of the show itself, no, because we have all 5 episodes are in, with the exception of episode 5, are in final animation. So it would require much more undoing should we want to go back and do additional dialogue. But the reality is, I don't think we need it. We've gotten pretty good at it, especially at the script phase on Revolution. That we're pretty locked up on what it is. I don't think we need anything. I just watched the first pass on the score for episode 3 yesterday, and episode 2 is now mixed. So we're pretty close to wrapping up on the show. Obviously, there's a little bit more work to do on 4 and 5, but it's pretty good.
Oh, good. You know, since
what it does do is what we can't do is what we did a lot in Revelation was having, you know, the cast go out and promote it. That we can't do.
Yeah, I know.
So and it was sad because we were planning on a much more cast focused panel at Comic-Con. Obviously, nobody wants to hear me and Rob talk about shit, but you know, so that was a bit of a pivot. We were going to bring Keith there, like we were going to. It wasn't just you were going to hear Keith; you were going to see Keith and talk to him. And Keith was one, honestly. And I hate taking credit for the casting, but it's kind of like I hear them in my head, and very early on, I said Keith David should be our Hordak. And fortunately, look, if Kevin didn't agree, he would say so. If Rob didn't agree, he would say so, and we would figure it out. We'd find somebody better. That happened many, many times on the show where we found somebody that was the best person for the show, for the job. And Keith was the one that we were just like, yeah, like his voice is just so good.
It's so perfect. Yeah.
It's so good. And he snorts. He does snort.
Yeah. I mentioned that in a video too. I can't wait that you mentioned that. You know, you actually said it's about 5 or 6 snorts. You know, you gave us the number.
He's very different than Skeletor. Skeletor is a wise ass, right?
Yeah.
So his humor is coming from the witty lines. There's some really, he's got some zingers in this, like really good lines.
Oh, good.
And then, but Hordak in the original, in the Filmation show, he was darker, but he wasn't as much of a wise ass as Skeletor was. We kind of lean into that. He's dark and threatening, but he enjoys being a friggin' dictator, and he likes it, and he finds the humor in that. And I think that's what, you know, where we find some moments of levity with Hordak in this.
That's awesome. Hey, since we're on the topic of actors, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about this. Last November, I think everyone, you know, received quite a devastating gut punch when we heard the news that Revelation's Merman, and quite frankly, maybe the world's best Batman, had died. Yeah, the legendary Kevin Conroy passed away so young too, only at age 66. And from what I heard, he was just a wonderful human being. So, can you talk about your personal experience with Kevin, and did he have a part to play in Revolution that he recorded, you know, before his passing?
He didn't, and it wasn't for lack of wanting or lack of desire. It just this story didn't need a merman moment. This is really a smaller story. It is He-Man, it is Skeletor, it is Hordak, you know, Motherboard Tila, Evil Lynn. It's like that's the story, right? Okay. But you know, I unfortunately only met Kevin on Revelation, and it was, you know, I mean, he was my Batman, and my whole life, when you close your eyes, you hear Kevin Conroy as Batman, and I will forever hear him as Batman. And I got to spend a really, really, really nice afternoon with him. And he, you know, Tim Sheridan actually has many more Kevin stories, because Tim worked on Justice League Action, where he returned as Batman, and they had a beautiful relationship. And you know, I didn't have as deep of a relationship with him, much to my sad loss. I just got to tell him how much he meant to me and how much his Batman meant to me. So, but he was, as you'd imagine, kind and funny and respectful. And he happened to be in the booth that day with Diedrich Bader, who was doing Randor. Like a day when we were recording a bunch of folks. And I have this great picture of me and Kevin and Diedrich. I was literally between two Batmen, and it was like, I just, you know, and probably next to, you know, Kevin, my favorite animated Batman was Diedrich, because I loved Brave and the Bold. I love that show. And I think that there is, you know, it was just nice to be there between those two. And then, you know, Mark was also there that day, and I just got to witness that friendship, which I mean, that is one for the books. Mark loved Kevin, and Kevin loved Mark. They were exactly what you'd want them to be. They were thick as thieves, those two.
Yeah, I just loved it. You know, I don't collect much beyond Motu, but I do have some Batman animated series figures. And yeah, he was definitely my Batman too. I would put an asterisk because I was such a big fan of the Keaton Batman.
Keaton's my live action Batman, but
okay.
But
that's a good way to
Kevin
separate
kind
it.
of supersedes that though, because like I don't think of Keaton's voice. So when I'm reading a Batman comic, I don't hear Michael Keaton. I hear Kevin Conroy. But Keaton is my favorite Batman to watch cinematically.
Yeah. So maybe on a lighter note, you may have heard that the live action Masters of the Universe movie was sadly canceled again this time.
I found out when everybody else did. Everybody was pinging me that day, and I was like, I literally found out when you all did.
And apparently it's all to the fault of Kevin Smith, I heard.
Well, it's not my fault. I'm good. No.
But speaking of live action, and I'm kidding about that, everyone, that was a joke. But speaking of live action Motu, and I know this is a competitor of yours, but maybe you heard something through one of your industry connections. So I must ask, have you heard anything new going on at Amazon in regards to the new She-Ra series that they announced a year ago? No,
I have not, and it's it was one of those things when I heard it was happening, because I'm very, very close with all the DreamWorks team. I'm like longtime friends, not even just like work colleagues.
oh, cool.
And when I heard that was going over there, I was like, oh wait, what? And apparently they'd come to Netflix to a different division, and the division passed on it, and I was like, oh, okay, well, so it was kind of like they had a relationship with Netflix. They came to Netflix first, and then they passed, and then they went over to Amazon. But I have not heard any updates for it, and I probably wouldn't hear any updates. I would hear them when everybody else does.
Okay. I got concerned because
tight industry secrets kind of things.
Well, you have the fingers on the pulse of the industry.
Oh yeah, that's me.
But I actually have a concern because that thing was announced like in the summer of 2022, and they said Nicole Castle is going to direct, and then a couple of months ago, Amazon announced Nicole Castle is going to direct a Medusa movie for Amazon, and which is cool. I mean, I would love this. I love the Gorgon. I can't wait for that Lady Slither Origins figure.
Me too.
Yeah, I know, and it's got the interchangeable legs and snake body. But I'm like, I mean, it's possible she signed ahead of time, and she's lining up her projects. But
let me just poke a hole in the Hollywood machine for a moment.
Okay.
Development takes forever. There are no guarantees that something that is in development is going to get made. It is a massive heartbreak. I've had plenty of shows that I've been developing, and I tend to not buy a lot of projects, right? Because I only like to pour my heart and soul into something if I'm going to make it. And I also, if I'm building a relationship with a piece of talent, I don't like to buoy them only to not have it happen, right? So I'm very, very like specific about the things that I buy. At the same time, I have a job where I have to make sure that we have a steady cadence of, stuff coming. And I'm very, very lucky at Netflix. I have a very wide, berth of what I do, and I've got a long track record of successes. So I'm allowed to sort of buy the things that I want to buy, but things don't always go the way you plan them to go, and it's a lot has to go right for something to get made. I cannot stress how many facets have to be firing on all cylinders to get made. That's why I said earlier, nobody intends to make anything bad. Everybody sets out with the best of intentions, and everything, there are so many things, whether it's timing, whether it's budget, whether it's talent, whether it's intentions, whether it's ideas, whether it's like, there's so many things that have to be aligned for something to not just come out, but be great. And it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. So when something does come out and something is good, like I just have so much respect for the people who manage to agree and, and get to that place, because it is hard. It is so hard, and it could come down to something very simple. Somebody may have an amazing script that like is 100% like a beautiful script, and it is given to an amazing director who loves it and understands it, and then the budget is assigned to it, and it's a good budget, and you are able to produce it, and you get an A-level talent, and it is fantastic. And then COVID, or then a regime change, and somebody's like, oh, I don't like that story or that IP or that talent or that director. Like little things that come in and just blow it the F up.
One more. And I promise everyone we'll get back and we'll wrap this up with juicy Masters of the Universe questions. But I hear, sir, that you are involved with developing a television series that is possibly the best arcade game of all time. Dragon's Lair.
Why? Where would you hear such a thing?
Come on. Ryan Reynolds, right? I think he's talked about it, or you can't talk about this.
So it is true that Dragon's Lair is one of my all-time favorite games. It is true that when I went out to lunch with Roy Lee, prolific producer Roy Lee, and he said, Give me any IP. What do you want? I said, Dragon's Lair. It is true that Roy then went and got the rights to Dragon's Lair. We did bring it to Netflix. The idea was bigger than a series, and the feature team found value in it as well. So it has moved to the feature team and has been in development there. They have been kind enough to keep me in the loop because they know I love it. But I am not actively the one developing it right now. So again, development takes forever. Ryan is perfect as Dirk.
Daring.
And it's the Hagemans who are writing it, who are just incredible. We love them. I think that, I'm just as hopeful as everybody else that it comes together and makes something truly amazing.
I was so obsessed with that game. Do you remember the sitcom Silver Spoons with Ricky Schroeder?
Of course.
Okay. You remember he was like Richie Rich and he had all the arcade games in the back. And wouldn't you know it, Prime and maybe not center, but there was Dragon's Lair, and I couldn't wait to spot that game in that sitcom.
So, AJ,
yeah,
I have 2 full-size arcade games in my house. One of them is the 4-player X-Men game. The other one is a multi-cade. It has about 999 games in there. But I have space right next to that one for Dragon's Lair. And I told myself that on my 50th birthday, I will buy myself a Dragon's Lair dedicated arcade cabinet. So in a year and a half, I will send you pictures.
That is awesome. Did you see there's a arcade 1-up version, a smaller version?
Yeah. Those are little ones. Like these are, I have the full-size ones. And trust me, I would have bought like all of those arcade 1-ups. The Ninja Turtles. I bought Tim the Simpsons one with the Simpsons game and the Simpsons bowling. I bought him that for Christmas. So yes, I do love those arcade 1-ups.
What was your favorite scene, real quick, to play?
Well, I love the one with the wizard, the wraith wizard that shows up. But that character popped up in a few different locations in there. The one that looked like the wizard's lab with all the potions that were dripping on there. I love that one. I liked any of the jumping ones where you had to get from one side to another, where the spikes and the platforms were falling down. I always loved those because I was always really good at that. I don't know why.
For me, it was the Lizard King.
Most people hate Dragon's Lair because they don't know how to play it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's actually one of the easier games to play. It's just timing. It's just boop. It's boop. You're not like button mashing. You're just boop.
Yeah, the problem was there wasn't any instructions. I remember seeing it for my first time and someone else was playing it. I think it was expensive at the time, $2 to play, right?
Yeah, it was 50 cents. That's right.
Yeah, and someone just went up to it and he was trying to control it like a sprite, like a live action video game or something like that. And he completely died and got frustrated and walked away. But I quickly learned that this is like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, in a way, you know.
Yeah. I have one of the 1/6 scale ones. Did you ever see those?
Yes, I did.
I have one of those. I've got that and I've got Cuber.
Oh, Cuber. I love Cuber. You know, I got to get myself a pinball machine too. So
okay, I have a full size digital pinball machine. It's got over 2,000 different pinball games in there, including like vintage pinball games, but they're all digital. And
I've seen that. It's like an LCD TV, right?
Yes, and it is A+, my friend. It is A+. And there's like custom pinball like fields that people design digitally. And there's a Masters of the Universe one in there, and it's so fun because they use like all the old toys as the different things that move. It is, I'm telling you, A+.
You know, there's credible rumors out there that Stern is developing a Masters of the Universe. Oh, you don't you don't believe it, or
no? I'm just thinking, where the hell am I going to put that?
You know what? That's something like that. You'll just make the room, man. You'll figure something out. But
when we bought when we bought the old house, I had a 1977 Gottlieb Hulk pinball machine, and it was in beautiful condition, but the score kept sticking, and I finally had to get rid of it because I was repairing it like I feel like twice a year, and I traded that in for the multicade cabinet, which I'm glad I did because that's got so many fun games in there that I play all the time. But I always said I really wanted a great, beautiful pinball machine, and there were 3 pinball machines that I would have wanted. Adam's Family was one.
That's a classic.
That's one of the best, right?
Probably
Elvira is, and actually there are 2 of them: the Scared Stiff, and then the what was the second one?
Party Monsters or something? Or?
Yeah, Party Monsters. That's right. And then finally, I said I would want them to make a Motu pinball machine. So,
well, it might be happening. So.
Elvira still, she's got a new one. She's got a 3rd one, that either is coming out or just out, and she's got them at her house, and I was like, she had me over to play her last pinball machine. So,
you know, if I had the money and the space, there's this real cool Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, you know, the original one. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you need to Google that. It is so impressive, so unique. Has Gene Wilder on the front. I mean, they have the license, you know, and it's brilliant. It's beautiful.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's gonna be a pretty penny, but
I love pinball machines.
Me too. So, voice acting, right? We put a pin in that. You used to voice act regularly, you know?
I don't. I used to, yes, but
yeah. Superhero Squad, hero up. You know?
Oh my goodness, that was one where I was cast as Mole Man.
He would always fart, man.
Yeah, and I did them all live in the booth. Seriously, I would make all.
You kidding?
In the booth. That was one of the best recording experiences of my life. Okay, that was actually my first official, real television show. I had done a couple others, but that was my first like regular. And I came in, and I'm walking into the room, and there's Tom Kenny and Charlie Adler and Travis Willingham and and Kevin Michael Richardson and Cree Summer and Gray Delight. Literally the best voice actors in the world. I'm walking into this room with these legends. and they split up the room, so the heroes would be on one side and the villains would be on the other side. And I come in and I sit next to Charlie Adler, who was playing Dr. Doom, and Charlie is one of the funniest people I have ever worked with in my life. Like, tears would come down my eyes in the middle of recording, and he and Kevin Michael Richardson had the best banter that will never be heard ever, because it is so inappropriate. But they were so funny and sharp. And Tara Strong was in that room, and I said Cree Summer, but like they're all so good. I had like master class, like literally just dropping in to this room of these A-listers, and Stan Lee played the mayor in that show. And he was in maybe every third episode, right? And he would always come in, and I think he would forget that this is the same group of people, and he would come in and go, I didn't know I'd be in a room with real actors. Nobody told me that there were going to be real actors in this room. It's very, very exciting. So he would like come in and do that, like, just, it was a bit, and he did it every time.
That was good. Who was that guy? Rich Little, man.
Oh, yeah.
Do you do any others?
Let's see. Oh my God, probably the I got to work with Stan quite a bit, and it was like, talk about, they say never meet your heroes. That's so not true. Like, honestly, every person who I've ever loved and had the opportunity to work with, I've only had great experiences. There hasn't ever been anyone where I'm like, I will never ever. They've only been wonderful. And Stan was truly one in a million. He was so funny and charming, and just, and he loved what he did. He just loved it. I told him, I said, you know how Hal Holbrook used to make a career by playing Mark Twain? Like, he would do like an evening with Mark Twain. I said, I'm going to do, like, when I'm at the right age, I'm going to do like an evening with Stan Lee, and I'm just going to get up there and I'm going to tell like your life story. And it will be a very short show. There's not a lot of good stories to tell. I went, are you kidding? You are nothing but good stories.
I've heard wonderful things about John Irwin, and I just wish
I got to spend a lot of time with Alan Oppenheimer, and he was Alan. First of all, Alan is just the sweetest man in the world, and he and John are still very good friends, and they talk a lot. And Alan keeps trying to get him to partake in the fandom, and John just keeps saying, he's like, I'm not He-Man. They don't want to see me, and Alan's like, bullshit. He said, I'm not Skeletor, but they still want to see me. And he's like, John just has this thing that he doesn't want to cloud people's visions of their hero. I mean, he's just very, very humble. I find a lot of voice actors are like that. Frank Welker, very, very humble and kind man, does not like the spotlight, and literally has the longest resume of any actor in history. Did you know that Frank Welker has the longest resume of any actor in the history of acting?
I guess maybe the craft draws those type of personalities, maybe sometimes.
It's funny because some actors love the spotlight, and some just love the craft, and I think John's just one that loves the craft, and he's grateful for his time and contribution, but I don't think that he desires the accolades.
So about the craft, real quick, do you have you've really have experience now in both live action and animation, and you went to school for animation, right? I remember that? Yeah. Okay.
Indeed.
So do you now have a preference now that you have a strong foothold in both?
I like the immediacy of live action, right? Because it moves much quicker from script to screen.
Right.
Animation does not. It is a 1.5 to 2 years between script to screen. I know people are like, we heard about this a year ago. Yes, well, you heard about it after the first script was written, and you're not going to see it for another year and a half. So calm down. But like there is, animation takes forever. What I love about animation is the artistry that goes into it. I love the art of character design. I love the art of background design. I love all the intricacies. And with animation, you have more opportunities to refine. Mm-hmm. Live action, once it's shot, it's shot. And if you want to do it again, it's expensive. Whereas animation, it's like, we could do another take on that in animation. Yes, it's going to be long, but we can fix it. We can refine it, and we can make it better.
But you don't really have a preference now? You just love them both?
I don't know if I have a preference. I don't know if look, I've worked with people who have excelled in both live action and animation. Like I am, I've been working with Tim Burton now on Wednesday, and then we built
that's a great show,
a really great relationship, and I want Tim to do something else with me, and I want it to be in animation. So I also have something for him that I'm developing that I want for him to do in live action. I love Tim. I've worked with Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo is very much in the animation space right now in his mind. He loves what animation is bringing for him at this stage in his career. I want him, he's focused on something in animation. I want him to do that in live action. I'm like, no, stop thinking about animation, do it in live action. So,
speaking of animation, oh, by the way, I love that dance on Wednesday. Whoever choreographed that dance. She did? Oh, you're kidding me. And did you see all those like Instagram videos or TikTok videos where everyone's doing the dance?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw them. I'll tell you, my colleague Coral, she and I work on Wednesday together. She called it after when we first saw the dailies for that dance. Coral said, this is going to be a TikTok sensation. She called it.
Wow. She was right. But back when you were saying Tim Burton and animation, were you ever interested in dabbling in directing? And why I ask is if anyone goes on your Instagram page, it's spectacular, everyone, Animate Ted, they can instantly recognize like you have an amazing visual eye with all your toy photography that sometimes I feel like I'm looking at stills from like something from Nightmare Before Christmas or something like that. So it seems like, or at least you would be a shoe-in for director of photography because you just got that eye. So is this something you ever thought about?
That I appreciate that. Yes, I actually did think about that. What I went to school, and when I was in school, I can draw, but I loved building. Like that was my thing, and Nightmare Before Christmas changed my life. Like a lot of people, it changed my life. I saw something that I had never seen before. And the fascination of telling a story in miniature with, real 3 dimensions and the craft of design in that really just knocked me on my ass. And I wound up focusing my intentions in school in stop motion. That's what I really, really refined. And all of the stuff that I did there was all about, lighting and composition and set design and stuff like that. But what was happening in the animation department in my school at the time was very much focused on the technical skill, the craft of animation, and not so much on storytelling. And I felt like I needed to focus on storytelling and the fundamentals and principles of storytelling, and the craft. While yes, there was a lot to learn in the craft, but like the medium was irrelevant as long as you understood character and plot structure. That then you can do that in animation, you can do that in live action. So I switched my degree over to the theater department where they had a directing program, and that's what I majored in. That's what I graduated in. And while I was there, that's where I learned script analysis. That's where I wound up taking acting classes, which I had never in my life, AJ, would I ever think that I was going to be an actor. But while I was there, I took acting lessons, and I do funny voices. And my friends who were still in the animation department would always ask me to do voices in their animated projects. And I wound up graduating with like a reel of voice acting work. And my mother was like, this is what your calling is. This is your calling. You're going to be a voice actor. That's what it's, the universe is telling you, this is what you're going to be. And it was very much like, oh yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be a voice actor. And I moved out to LA with every intention of being a voice actor. And then I got sidetracked. I hated auditioning, the worst. But I wound up meeting people and making friends, and I kind of fell into it. I got my SAG card for doing a commercial, for doing a Tide commercial where I was the voice of like a Pinocchio.
Wow.
And you know, I'm a real boy, like something like that. And I got, you know, I got my SAG card, and then I did a commercial for Wild Rivers Water Park, which is in Irvine, and that got paid for my car. And then I did like a KFC radio campaign that was one commercial that turned into like 6 commercials, and like it was crazy. And I kept getting, you know, voiceover work, but I hated the instability, right? Not knowing where my next coming from. I hated that. And I wound up going to a temp agency and saying, you know, I want to work in TV, specifically kids TV. And they got me a temp job at Disney, and I was there for 9 years. I stayed there for 9 years. Wound up working my way up through the things. And
it sounds awesome. I could just tell there that your mom was supportive. You know, I used to write and be extremely creative, but my parents were very traditional, you know, like get a real job, you know.
I was very lucky. My parents, I think very early on, they saw that I was creative, and my dad encouraged all my creative energies. He awesome. Would buy me, you know, like a trip to CVS to the you know, school supply aisle was like, that was like heaven, you know. And I would come away with like a GI Joe and a pad of paper and pencils, and that was like my favorite, you know, my favorite trip with my dad. But those were like, you know, they always saw my creative endeavors as something. I mean, of course they were worried that like, oh my God, can he make a living doing this? But I think that they thought, you know, do whatever makes you freaking happy, kid.
Let him try, you know, that kind of thing. Oh, that's great.
I think I'm glad that my mom was able to live to see, you know, hey mom, I own a house.
Oh, she passed
Los Angeles.
She passed away.
Yeah, at the beginning of COVID, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
She wasn't in great health. She, you know, she had COPD, but COVID was like a magnet for her, and she was in an assisted living facility. And we didn't. I mean, at the time, it was December of. She died on New Year's Eve, 2019, and I don't think people knew like COVID was a thing then. Like they now track that it was in LA as early as October of 19, and flourishing in assisted living facilities. And my mom was just. I mean, it was insanely fast stage 8, and it was all the signs of COVID. So I think we didn't know that it was COVID until probably, you know, maybe March or April of 20. And my husband turned to me, he's like, I think your mom had this. And I was like, I think you're right.
Yeah. No, that was a sad time. I've lost both my parents, cancer and kidney disease, but that hit hard. I remember that. So sorry to hear that. So
it was like, you know, we took COVID very, very seriously. And I would get so angry with people who didn't take it seriously. And I was like, I lost my mother. So like,
you take it personally because of that.
Real thing, people. Like this is a real thing.
Yeah. All right, we better get back to Masters of the Universe Revolution before we keep
going down to these, you know.
I know, we can do this for hours, so we better do this before we close it out. Otherwise, they're going to come after me. All right. So it feels like the continuity of Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution is the prime timeline now in Motu Dark Horse Comics. And we got the original 4-issue Revelation prequel series by Tim Sheridan, the And the Revelation universe was the base timeline in the Tim Seeley's Masterverse comics. And we're getting a 4-issue, like year one, Revelation Revolution continuity series called The Forge of Destiny, also by Tim Seeley. Now, I especially adored the prequel series that Tim Sheridan did for Masters of the Universe Revelation with the Orlax of Primaria. I love that, which was a masterstroke to me because having a minor character in the series, which was minor in your show, but important in the prequel comic series and important to the overall story, but not necessary to be in the animated series, it was just it added a dynamic layer. It was just magnificent. So again, a long way of asking. So will there be a similar like comic prequel tie-in to Masters of the Universe Revolution? And will Tim be doing it? Tim Sheridan? A long way to get no answer.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like that.
Okay. All right. Well,
there's definitely lots of layers to unpack that will make Revolution even more richer for your experience. So,
okay. Great. Okay. I have a feeling this is going to be a pattern for the next 5 minutes.
I like that Orlax so much that I made one.
Wow, that's awesome.
I made it. Tim lost his mind when I showed it to him. It's it was one of the Dianogas from Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make that into my Orlax.
So. That is awesome because I have the Orlax from the Comic Con. You know, what is that? Mysteries of Grayskull set.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a miss for me. I was very disappointed with the way that execution came out.
Yeah, I wasn't thrilled with it either, but I got it because I just love the Orlax. But all right, so last year, San Diego Comi Con 2022, Kevin Smith told attendees during that MOTU 40th anniversary panel that we probably could figure out the third series, what it would be called if we thought about it. Like Masters of the Universe Redemption, Masters of the Universe Resurrection, you know, something like that, I guess.
Those are good.
But it seemed like a clear indication that a third entry, that a third chapter was already at least clearly in Kevin's mind. So do you already have the third book of Revelation and Revolution, a third series storyline already mapped out if you get the opportunity to continue? You do.
Oh yeah. We know the whole where it all is going. Okay. And I think you'll see at the end of Revolution, you know, much like we had the motherboard reveal.
Yeah.
There are two moments like that in Revolution that I think will give you an idea of where we're headed with the I almost said the name.
We would have cut it out, you know.
But yes, we definitely know where it's going to go. There's some obviously Revolution has to do well, right?
Yes.
Well, in order to get another season. So.
Well, you know, I was speculating, and it's probably bad to speculate that since you guys were only doing 5 episodes, you know, that maybe that was like secretly greenlit behind the scenes.
I wish. No, the 5 episodes was kind of like we wanted. If we did 10 episodes, first of all, I don't know if this story would have sustained 10 episodes. Okay. This feels like a movie. This feels like a 2.5 hour movie. And you know, could we have done a 6th? Maybe, but I think we did a really good job in the 5 episodes. I think in the next one, I think we would need another episode. I think we'd have to do 6 episodes. I personally think that Revolution, I think it's no secret that we wish we would have aired all 10 at once. I think that the timeline, I think that would have solved a lot of the swirl that, you know, oh, this is a show without He-Man. I think that a lot of that would have gone away. Maybe not a lot, but maybe some of it. But I think that we didn't want to sort of drag on again, and you know, animation takes time. So
Yeah.
we have Revelation did well enough that we got Revolution. I hope Revolution does well enough that we can get our third part, and then the third part will feel like a nice culmination to our story. Doesn't mean that Motu would be over at the end of it. It's just it brings us a new state of normalcy that I think people would be like, oh yeah, that's the freaking show. One of the things that I really liked about there was a lot of stuff that I didn't like in the mini comics that came in classics in terms of that storyline.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I liked was sort of like the new state of the state. Like this is the new state of Master Universe for a time, right?
Yeah.
For a time. And then they'll go back and they'll reboot it. Like that's what happens.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that there was a new state of the state. I think we want to deliver on that at the end of it. I promise we won't kill He-Man.
Oh, well, about killing things. Let's quickly talk Preternia. In regards to Preternia, last November, Mattel hosted that Masters of the Universe live stream event to discuss the Eternia playset that we were talking about, the crowdfunding. And Rob David himself, one of the three towers of Preternia, as Kevin Smith says, he said that Preternia would be back. So was Preternia perhaps... He said that. Guaranteed.
I'm gonna call for Rob David. I'm gonna call. Wait, hold on. I call him right now. Excuse you, Rob David.
So was Preternia perhaps mended and restored off screen at the end? No.
It was not mended and restored off screen.
Okay. And you probably can't elaborate, like. No.
I mean,
okay.
Put it this way. Something for a new sorceress to try to figure out, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I knew this is going to be the pattern of this last part. I knew it, but I have to ask.
Okay.
All right. At San Diego Comi Con, we got to see the Powerhouse animation model sheet of the new Skeletor, Skeletech, right? I think you said Skeletech in the panel, so I can officially say that. Infused with Motherboard's Technovirus, and he is known among the fan community with that green eye, right? And then with and the green eye on the right eye socket, and then the left side of his face remains covered with a hood. And there's something going on there, but we can't tell what. But then, thanks to the Mattel's Masterverse figure packaging reveal of their upcoming Skeletech figure, we got a peek of what was really going on. And under that hood, the left side of his face, it kind of reminded me more insect-like, and it had these like red eyes, or maybe they were like red LEDs, and it kind of reminded me of the golems from Revelation, or maybe those bug things in the Matrix. So can you elaborate, Ted, on what's going on with his face to any degree?
So, of all of the designs in Revolution, the design for that Skeletech, was the one that was gone through the most iterations. We really wanted to land on something. Obviously, this is a show about toys, so we want it to be toyetic, right? Because it's fun. Because and look, I'm not one of these studio executives is like, tell the toy people to stay off of it. No. I want to make a toy, so let's make some freaking toys. The concept around that Skeletor started with some sort of hybrid between New Adventure Skeletor and Laser Light Skeletor. That's where the concept started.
Okay.
We were all very much aligned with wanting to incorporate that iconography a little bit. And it's there if you look for it. The other part of that is there's an aesthetic to the Motherboard sort of cult, right? They all have that sort of like that cranberry colored robe and the hoods and all of that stuff going on. And then the way that the the motherboard virus sort of adapts is random, and no two look the same, right? They're all very different and they manifest differently, much the way a virus manifests differently in any human. So the Havoc staff being grafted into his arm it's a story point too, that it is now welded to him. It does light up red at one point. So there is a moment where it just, it glows. But we really tried to incorporate a lot of the motherboard stuff that we've already established, mixing it a little bit with the New Adventures and Laser Light, history designs, and then trying to infuse something new. We still want it to be something new. That's exciting. I think that a lot of people want the thing that they love, but part of keeping a brand alive is reinvention. It's something new. There is another form that Skeletor will take in our show that is also borrowed from an older design, but gives you something new. So I think people will see a little bit more of that. And I want another toy, right? I want, like, I've got a dozen mermans, and I know people were like, oh, why are we getting this merman with the scarred eye and the no armor? It's like, well, because I have a lot of other mermans that look like classic merman. Here's something new. Right. And then we'll get to classic merman. Like that's kind of the thinking behind it. But let's offer something new. And I think that that's what we were trying to do with Skeletech. Now, in terms of what's going on under his hood, you'll only see a flicker of it in the show. And it's not really a story point, but it is part of what the design was from Eddie and Patrick and Adam, of what they think is going on under there. But again, a lot of it is random, and a lot of it is just manifesting sort of a little bit of that horror idea. So most of the time it'll be covered. And then the green lens does change color, and there are story points for that too.
Well, that's cool. A lot of people, he was talking about this final form, and I know you can't mention about it, but a lot of people are hoping that it looks like New Adventures Skeletor, that it sort of bridges that connection, between the two shows. So
it will not. So, just to manage expectations.
All right. All right, and this frustrates you, but sticking with those figures, Mattel also displayed Gwildor and Orko 2-pack that looked amazing. Oh, I can't wait for that. But
did you see his ears are articulated? Did you
see
that?
No, I didn't notice that. Really?
Gwildor's ears are articulated.
That's awesome. Oh, I can't wait. I love the classics Gwildor, and so I can't wait for that.
I love the classics Gwildor too, except he only looks good with the other movie figures. I wish, instead of that giant cosmic key that they gave us in that package, I wish they would have given us a head that looked more like his toy, like a Four Horsemen sculpted version of his toy head, which I think would have looked better. I would have probably bought 2 Gwildors then and had him with, because now I only have him with my movie figures, but I would have loved to have had a Gwildor with my regular good guys if he looked more like the toy instead of like the movie.
And we needed
that's just me.
We needed a bucket too of ribs and chicken.
Oh man, I don't know why we didn't get that.
Well, with Gwildor, you must have noticed that he came with a power sword that had these 3.
He did?
Yeah, Gwildor came with a power sword, and I was wondering, what is he doing with that power sword, and why is these 3 little yellow marks on each side of the blade, and like half the blade? Look, I know Gwildor likes his dipping sauces, but it looks like it was dipped in yellow mustard.
Indeed, AJ. Well, you know what? How about I just tell you the entire plot of Revolution?
That sounds great. All right. All right. So you know what? Let's just do the rest of this as a lightning round, because you're not gonna be able to answer any of this here. So
put it this way.
Yeah.
There's a reason that He-Man is He-Man for as many episodes as he is. How's that?
And I have some speculation, and that's what I was thinking, but I don't want to.
But I did say, I think you posted it, or yeah, I think you posted it on Instagram. I did say the sword is not broken. Gwildor is not fixing the sword. The sword is not broken. We did that. The sword broke last time. We did that. But we do make a joke about it. We do make a joke about Adam breaking the sword.
All right, so let's do this lightning round. Let's put 60 seconds on the clock. Are you ready, Teddy?
I'm ready.
All right. The Masterverse Skeletech action figure also comes with a crown he can wear that looks similar to King Randor's, but not exactly. Whose crown is it, and why is he wearing it, Teddy?
It's Skeletech's crown because he likes a fucking crown.
All right, my hunch is William Shatner will be playing Granamir in Masters of the Universe Revolution. Can you confirm, sir?
No, I cannot confirm.
Will Mechanic be appearing in Masters of the Universe Revolution?
No.
Wow.
Just like that.
Just like that. Wow. Okay. Wow, we got one, folks.
There was actually an early draft where Mechanic was in there, but he is not.
Okay. Wow. I didn't expect that. I'm running out of time.
I'm just managing expectations. I don't want people to go, Mechanic's not. No, he's not. So get used to that when you come to watch it.
All right. Will Zodak be making an appearance? Okay.
Next.
Will Jason Mewes be returning as Stinkor, Teddy?
Jason Mewes is not returning as Stinkor.
All right. Will my favorite character, Webstore, return? And will he actually have a line of dialogue this time?
Those 2 questions. Yes and no.
I can't. Does King Randor or Queen Marlena die?
Next.
Will Fisto return to Fist again? All right. Will there be any legacy movie actors returning in Revolution other than Meg Foster, like Dolph Lundgren, Frank Langella, or Courtney Cox as Julie?
No more movie actor legacies. There may be a couple more legacies that we have not announced yet.
That's awesome. And finally, I know time's up, I'm sure. Will Cobra Khan appear in Masters of the Universe Revolution just so William Shatner can yell, Khan?
No. Cobra Khan is not in this. We have not delved into Snake Man storylines yet, and if and when we do, Cobra Khan will be a part of that.
Okay.
But TBD whether or not Shatner will be the one to say that. That would have been great. That would be great though. But by the way, we do have quite a few Shatner lines to for the diehard Star Trek fans. There are quite a few Shatner lines in there that will make you smile.
I can't wait. And Ted, you've been such a sport with these.
Man,
I appreciate it.
I mean, because I'm bad, as my friends will tell you. I mean, sometimes I am really good at keeping secrets. I've kept who Shatner's playing down for so long. I'm gonna explode. There's a couple others that like, you know, there's a couple things that you said in there that I was like, whoa. And it's hard to not spoil it, but it's not because we're trying to play coy. It's not because we're trying to do anything. We want people to experience the show, and the show by design has certain things reveal in the time of the show for impact, for that feeling, right? One of the reasons why in the thing we never said Adam died, because that's a moment you want to experience. You don't, I mean, should we have told people that Adam died so that they could prepare for that?
No.
Maybe.
But
I think that's part of that is the experience of narrative, is being surprised. It's so hard to surprise people in the age of the internet. It is so hard. So part of that enjoyment of you know, of seeing Patrick Stewart as Professor X in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, right? Like, that was just thrilling for a 90s kid who loved that X-Men cartoon and who loved Patrick Stewart in the X-Men movies. And there he is in that yellow hover chair while plays in the back. Like, come on. Yeah. Imagine that being spoiled for you in the moment, right? Like, that, to me, that's part of the worst things about the internet culture, is that it ruins the moment of enjoyment in the moment. And I try so hard as somebody who's a custodian of content to preserve that. Like, it's part of what I love, is for people to experience those turns, those highs and lows in the moment.
I think most of the time us fans don't want to know, but it's fun to speculate. It's even fun to ask you and just see your responses, you know? But do I really want to know everything? No, I want to like be surprised just like everyone else, you know?
I'm very much in that same headspace. Like with like, I knew that Motherboard was the exclusive over a year ago. And like, you know, chatting with Pixel Dan, like, Dan does not want to know. Dan is very, very much like, I want to be surprised. So I was like, do me a favor, text me as soon as Mattel lets you know what the exclusive is. So it's like, because I want to talk about it, but I can't talk about it because I also respect people's, you know, intentions. If they don't want to know, then I'm not going to spoil something for them. Like, that's awful.
Hey, speaking of Pixel Dan, you were on that Hot Toys podcast, the Hot Toy Cast with Eamon O'Donoghue, which I just adore. And Dan brought up that we're getting new animation figures from Mondo, you know, not just the Skeletor, which I have.
There are some in the works. I don't know how soon they are coming, but I chatted with the guys when I was in at San Diego, and they're still in the cooker. So
good. All right. So, and I figure that's one way to wrap it up with one more question about your toy collection. And for anyone who doesn't know, Ted has an amazing toy collection, and it's not just Masters of the Universe, but so many other pop culture collectibles, and it's massive. And if you go on Ted's Instagram page, you can see his collection in the form of everything from unboxings to his awesome toy photography. And you know, Ted, when I see your stuff, I seriously think you can open up a little toy museum when you retire. You know, a little store.
That is the plan. That is absolutely the plan. I have always said that when I retire, I am going to open up a little toy museum. I have a garage. My toy room. This is mostly modern stuff. So like all over here. This is all
wow. Modern. Okay.
But all my vintage stuff is all in my garage. So I try to, like, I keep saying, like, that's what I'm going to open that up.
That'd be awesome, man. And you wouldn't really make any money, but it'd be so fun, you know, and rewarding, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. But all right. So the last question I wanted to maybe end with is, with such a massive, impressive collection, if I ask you right now, currently, what is your favorite Masters of the Universe brand toys and non-Masters of the Universe toys right now in this moment? Which would it be?
My favorite Masters of the Universe toys are Rotar and Twistoid. Okay. Because I had the worst case of chicken pox in the world, and my great aunt was in the Cherry Hill Mall in New Jersey and called my mom and said, does he have Rotar and Twistoid in Masters of the Universe? And my mom asked me, and I said, I don't know who they are. And I thought it was because I had like 103 fever. And I thought that I was like delirious. And my aunt bought me home Rotar and Twistoid. And it was the first time I had ever heard of them, seen them. Like, they were like, it was a new Masters of the Universe character that I never heard of. That, like, that doesn't happen anymore where a toy on the shelf is new to you. That's the first time you hear of it.
Yeah.
So those really mean a lot to me. I have over here, I have both. I have Titus and Megator in mint and box, and I have a Wonder Bread He-Man. That's actually a repro camo con. It's not a real one. I can't take that credit. But those, when I first got my first promotion, where I was a VP, I treated myself and I bought those. And then so those hold special place in my heart. My favorite non-Masters of the Universe toys would likely be
you know what I loved? I'm not in tune with toys as much as you, but when I saw you post Inspector Gadget, I don't know who made that. Inspector.
Those are the Blizz toy Inspector Gadget figures. Those are great. You know what's funny is I always say Motu's my number one, Turtles and Ghostbusters tie for number two, and then X-Men is number three. I think right now.
Yeah, right now.
Right now, my favorite non-Motu toy is probably the Dungeons and Dragons Beholder that just came out.
Oh, is that the one with the one eye?
It's like, honestly, I never thought that we would get one of those figures, but the way that it's executed is just beautiful. I'm also really in love with G.I. Joe Classified series right now. I think that they're absolutely like top notch. I love them. And I love the NECA Classic Universal Monsters. Yeah. So I'm a big Universal Monsters fan, and I think they're just knocking it out of the park. I know those are multiple answers, but that's kind of where my head is.
Did you ever see the classic monster? You know Rudolph, Rankin Bass.
Oh the party. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Not many people know about that.
Oh yeah.
You know, because that one's never seemed to. I guess it was kind of controversial in a way if you think about it now. But Boris Karloff was in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. I have action figures of them. There's a Dracula, a Frankenstein, and a Uncle Boris figure, and I have all three of those.
Yeah, I'm not sure that was her name, Natasha. I don't remember her name. She was like a Jessica Rabbit in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forget her name.
Natasha. I'm remembering like that little Igor guy going like Natasha.
Igor and Felix is the boy. Is it Natasha? I think you might be right.
Maybe. And Phyllis Diller was in that too. She was great.
Phyllis Diller was the bride, the monster's bride.
She was the hostess with the leastest.
Yeah.
All right. I have tortured Teddy long enough.
So much fun.
Well, that's a wrap all. We want to thank Teddy for joining us today. You've been an absolute delight, sir, and I appreciate it. And we appreciate this wonderful community out there for listening and watching this podcast. Now, if you enjoyed the show, please show us your support by liking and subscribing to our streams. You can always drop us a line too. By sending us an email to foreternia@gmail.com. We really appreciate the feedback. And as always, please visit us at foreternia.com for all the latest updates and news, as well as links to our social media pages like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram that can help you stay up to date with all the Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution content. So that's it. I want to thank you all for listening and watching. And let the power return. Bye, guys.